Hey there planners, today we are back for the second video in the series on how to build your own digital planner. So go grab your planners and let's get planning. Alright, so in the first video we talked about the homework that you needed to do to map out your planning system needs and really think through getting ideas, collecting those ideas and saving them on what you want your planner to look like. If you have not done that homework and have no idea what I'm talking about, go check out the first video in this series. I will have it linked down in the description box below so that you can start from the beginning, because that's really important to start from the beginning. If you've done your homework, excellent. It's time to move on to the second step. Today, we're actually going to be talking about the design and format of your planner. This includes adding links. What do you want your planner to look like? Sizing for your planner, which is oh so complicated, but very, very important for building a digital planner. We're also going to talk about color schemes and how you find and define those color schemes for your planner. All right, so first up on the list of things to cover is how to add links to your planner. And this is really important because you need to think about this from the very beginning of building your planner. So what I mean by links are, in my planner that I'm using in Goodnotes, when I click on any of the links, I actually get to a page somewhere else in the planner. So for example, I just clicked on the annual section, the calendar section of my planner. Here I have a sub-index where I have linked, for example, my future log, which is on a separate page. And then from my future log, I can get to the month of May. And then from the month of May, I can get to my routines, right? So that's why we had you do the homework about all the different sections you need, sections and subsections of your planner, because you're going to need to turn those into links in your planner. Otherwise, you're going to be scrolling like this through a lot of your planner, and that is not efficient, especially when you have a planner that has hundreds of pages, which, as you know, our planners typically do, right? So for adding links, the way we actually do this, there's actually a couple of options that you can use. You can use PowerPoint, you can use Keynotes, or you can use other software systems that actually cost money, like Adobe Publisher or InDesign, things like that. I am going to be using Keynotes because number one, it's free, and number two, it's easy. I really enjoy the Keynotes function. So if you have not ever used Keynotes before, you want to get that and play around with it a little bit before you start actually building your planner, just to get familiar with the application and how you use it. But here is a glance at what kind of the back end of the planner looks like as I'm building it. You can see here's the calendar section, and you see these little arrows. These are all links that I have actually created within the planner itself as I'm building it. So that's part of what you're going to be doing. So this is really important that you have Keynotes ready to go if you're going to follow along with me. Again, you can use PowerPoint. I have tried it out before. I don't like it as much. It didn't work as well for me, so it's not what I'm going to be using. The next thing we talked about is getting ideas for how you want your planner to actually look. Do you want your planner to look like a notebook or not? I went with looking like a notebook because this really helps me transition from a paper planning system to a digital planning system. So I knew I might have a hard time if I got too far away from what I had been using in the past. So I actually built my planner to look like a notebook, meaning there are 2 pages and they are connected with some sort of binding system, which I chose rings as my binding system. The reason I'm asking you to think about this is because if you want your planner to look like a traditional planner with some sort of binding system, then you're going to need to get that binding system. And there's a couple of ways to do this. If you go on Etsy, and I'll show you a couple options here. If you go onto Etsy and you search for planner rings or planner binding, you will find a bunch of options that are sold in an SVG or a PNG format. You're going to want that if you purchase one of these, you're going to want that to be in a PNG format, which basically means it's an image with no background. So you can put it on top of other things and it will sit on top of it without its own background to interfere with what your planner looks like. This is one option, and you can find rings and disc and coils in all different rose gold, silver, gold, platinum, all different colors and styles. So this is definitely one option. The option that I used, I actually made my rings in Procreate. Procreate is an app where you can actually design, and let me turn on the background here so you can see a little better. But this is where I actually designed, I'll zoom way in so you can see it. I actually designed my planner rings like this. I drew the circles, and then I drew the ring shape, and then I used shadowing and color to actually make it look like a ring. I only drew one of these, and then I just copied and pasted repeatedly into the size that I knew I would need for my planner. And then I turned off the background and exported that as an image, as a PNG. That's how I made my planner rings. That's certainly an option for you. If you're not that artistic or you just don't want to spend time on it, you can purchase, binding devices like rings and disc and coils, things like that, off Etsy or other creative markets. But if you want your planner to look like a notebook, you're going to need one of those. All right, let's talk about the next part of designing a planner, which is probably the thing I found most complicated and most difficult: the size of your planner. So you think this would be easy. You need to make a planner that fits in the screen that you have. And when you're using Goodnotes, which is the app that we're building a planner to use in, I'm using Goodnotes, you have really a couple of different sizes. You have this size, which is only the planner is showing. And then you have this size where the planner is showing with the Goodnotes header. And then you have this size, which is when the planner is showing with the Goodnotes header and you're in edit mode. So there's an additional toolbox that drops down. And what you'll see from that is in all three cases, you can see the entirety of my planner on the screen. Now, of course, I can zoom in, but when I zoom all the way out, my whole planner in all three cases fits on the screen. That was really important to me. I wanted that just from an aesthetic standpoint, from an ease of use standpoint. I wanted my planner to be visible in full, to fit in that screen. I ask you to think about this ahead of time because there's no set formula for every device that works. You actually have to test and try this out, and I could only tell you what the dimensions are that work on this specific device, which is a 12.9-inch iPad Pro. Now for this size, if you happen to have this size, the size planner that I am using is a 2304 by 1440 pixels, or in terms of points, 1728 by 1080. Now, Planning Annie, what are we talking about? Points in pixels. Yeah, that's also another aspect that makes this very confusing, because images and applications like Canva and iPad use a pixel system for measurement, while Keynotes uses a points system for measurement. And then you also have inches or centimeters, and down the rabbit hole we go. So I am going to help make this very easy for you. I'm going to start by telling you to go check out and sort of bookmark this page. It's called pixelcalculator.com, and I'll show it to you here. This is a very handy tool for turning inches or centimeters into pixels. So if you know you want an 11 by 8.5 inch planner, which is a standard size letter paper, right? If you know you want that, you can plug that in, those dimensions in, with the DPI, which there's a very complex definition of DPI, which I will not get into now, but typically you should use 300. That ensures that as you zoom in, you lose any quality of your image. So then you can easily calculate what that would be in pixels. All right, so if you know the inches and centimeters of your planner, you can use that tool to help you. Or if you know the pixels of your planner, you can use this tool to help you find the inches. Why is this helpful? Well, because I knew the dimensions of the screen size of my iPad. And you can go on the Apple website and find, or just Google search, screen size in pixels of the iPad, right? Or in inches of the iPad. That's a good starting point. The next thing to remember, and this is a formula, so remember this, 72 points equals 1 inch. 72 points equals 1 inch. So Keynotes uses a point system, and since we're going to be using Keynotes to build our planners, we need to know the size of our planner in terms of points. So if I know the pixels that I have in my screen size, then I need to transition that to inches so that I can get to points. See how complex this is? Okay. The way you really get to the answer for your own iPad is to test it out. So I'm going to show you, walk you through the steps right now of how to test out and make sure you get the size right. So let's hop over to Keynotes and we'll go to make a new presentation. Click on create a presentation and choose theme. I'm going to choose a basic white theme. And then I'm going to actually get rid of all of this stuff on the page and just have this plain white page. All right, now I'm going to go to the more options, which are the 3 dots at the top, and I'm going to go to document setup. Once I'm in document setup, down here at the bottom, I will see an option for slide size. I want to click that, and I want to go to custom. And this is where you see you need to enter the width and height in points. All right, so I already know that the planner size that I want is 1728 by 1080 points. But let's just say I don't know that, right? Let's just say I'm trying it out. So right now what's in here is 1920 points width by 1080 points width. So let's just go with that and see what it does. This is how you're going to test it out. So I'm going to say, yep, I'm done. And now I'm going to go to the plus sign and I'm going to add in a photo. Let's give it a, I actually have a photo of a planner here, so I'm going to plug this photo in. And you can plug any photo in. It doesn't really matter what photo you're plugging in. I'm going to plug this photo in, and then once I have something in there, and you can just do like different shades, different colors of paper, anything on there, you're going to come to the 3 dots and you're going to export it. So I hit export and I want to export as a PDF. And it's going to ask me, what options I want to include. You want to include the backgrounds, and that's it. And then you're going to export. And I'm going to say export and open in Goodnotes. And I'm going to open it as a new document. And then it's going to give me that image. And now I can really test out what it's going to look like. So right now I can already tell you, look at the space between the top and the bottom. That's a lot of space there. So let me change the view. I've still got, when I bring down the Goodnotes menu, I've still got a lot of space here and here. All right, and then when I go into edit mode, I've still got a lot of space here and here. Okay, and I've got unused room on the sides, but I could stretch out my planner, but this space at the top and bottom isn't quite right to me. All right, so that tells me that I need to make some adjustments in Keynotes. All right, so then I would go back to document setup, slide size, and I'm actually gonna, let me change the background here to a different color. Another image in the background. Let's do, I'll put this blue image that I have in the background. So I'm just gonna spread that out so that it covers the whole background, and then I'm gonna go to the arrange button and push it to the back. That way I really have some difference between the background and the planner. Okay, so now I want to go back to document setup, and I want to change the slide size again. Let's say I want to make this a little smaller. So now I'm going to change it to, and I can actually type in there, I'm going to change it to 1280. Okay, so I want to test that out so I can see immediately some things that happened. It looks a lot more like a square. I'm going to make this a little bigger so I can see that, and I'm going to make this a little bigger. And that's going to give me a good idea of what the planner will look like. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to export it again as a PDF. Export, open in Goodnotes, and I'm going to import as a new document. Okay, so if I start in this view, I can see lots of room on the sides. Lots of room on the sides here. If I go to the menu, not in edit, but just the menu option, I've still got a ton of room on the sides here. But I've lost some of the room here. And then when I go to edit, I've lost a lot of the view of the top and bottom. See how it slides down? I've lost a lot of that view, and I have a ton of room on the sides here. So hopefully that gives you a good sense of how you test it out. And it takes some time. It really takes some time. There is no master list of planner sizes that you can go reference. I so wish there was. If anybody knows where one exists, could you please leave that down in the comments below, because that would be so handy. But really testing it out is the only way to do it, to really make sure that you have the planner size and style that you actually want. So spend some time on this, testing it out. All right, whew, that last bit was a bit technical. That's probably as technical as I'll get. But unfortunately, planner sizing is complicated when it comes to digital planning, and I hope I didn't lose you. Stick with me. If you're feeling a little frustrated, stick with me. It gets better, it gets easier. Finding that right planner size is tough, and it does require some trial and error. But once you figure that out, you are golden. You are good to go. And now we're going to talk about something a little bit more fun, which is color scheme. So you can see in my planner that I built for myself, I have a color scheme of gray, purple, red, and tan. That was the color scheme I chose. I use it in my tabs. I use it to denote different sections. So everything purple is related to goals. Everything tan is related to faith. Everything gray is related to calendar. And I kept my calendar like that on purpose because I wanted to be able to use sticker kits and things like that. So I wanted it very neutral. Even if you want a very neutral color scheme for your planner, you're still going to have multiple colors within that neutral palette. And so there are a couple of ways that I want to show you for how to define your color palette. One of the ways that you can define your color palette is to just use the predefined colors that are in Keynotes already. So if I go over to Keynotes and let's say I add in a shape, and I add in this shape here, I can play around with the colors by going to fill and then looking at the colors that are defined here. Now, one of the limitations, I think it's a limitation in Keynotes, is that I can't actually enter hex codes. I have some predefined colors. There's even color schemes here that I can use, color gradients that I can use, and these are really good options if you want to keep it very simple. You can use these. You can also define using kind of a wheel here, what the different colors are. I can change, add, play with the grays, play with the saturation and get different colors, but I cannot enter hex codes, which a lot of color palettes really are defined by the hex codes of the color. I can't do that in Keynotes. What I can do is to add an image and create a color palette from an image, or I can use the color picker, which is right here. So I'm going to show you how to do that. If you don't want to use the predefined, the preset colors in Keynotes, there are some other options for you to use. So I've hopped over to Pinterest, one of my favorite sites, and I just typed in the search term color palette. And you can see I get zillions of ideas. There are some great ideas here for color palettes. Let's say I wanted to do color palette winter. And now I'm going to get all kinds of great ideas for these winter color palettes. If I wanted to use that, you can search color palettes neutral, all kinds of things. Let's say that I decide this is my color palette. I absolutely love this color palette, right? I can save this image by downloading the image, and then I can head back over to Keynotes, and I can add in the photo that I just downloaded, and then I can put it over here to the side, and now I've still got my shape here that I'm trying to color. When I go to fill, I can click on color, flip over to the wheel, have the color picker, and actually slide over any of the color and change that image to that color. All right, let's say I want to make another one of these. I copy, paste it, and I want this one to be a different color. Come over to the color wheel, pick a different color. So that's one way to solve this problem. Find an image of the color palette that you like, and then actually use the color picker. Now, if you can't find an image of the color palette you like, there's another way. All right, now I'm on a site called colorscheme.com, and again, I'll have all these listed down in the description box below. But let's say you found a color scheme here that you really like brightly muted. Love this color scheme. I can scroll down here and I can actually see the hex codes. So I can take the hex codes and go over to Procreate, and then in the colors I can add a new palette and enter the hex codes. So right here I can enter any hex code that I want. Let's say this is my color palette here. Let's say I enter the hex code and this is my color. Now I can make my own image to upload by just drawing out the colors that I want, entering the hex codes and drawing out the colors that I want. So I would add in all the colors that I want, export this as an image, add it as an image to Keynotes, and then use the color picker there. So there's 3 different ways to get to the color scheme that you want in Keynotes. The important part is that you find the right color scheme. So think about go back and look at your list of sections. How many planner sections do you have? How do you want to use those colors? Are there some colors that are base colors and some colors that are highlight colors? Be thinking about all of that and how you want this to look in your planner, because this is going to be an important part of building your planner. You're going to need to know those colors. Maybe you don't care and maybe just random colors are fine. Maybe you only want to use black and white, but just think about how you're going to use those colors in your planner. All right, that was a lot of information and I've given you some homework. You have to go tackle the size of your planner. Test it out, find the right sizes, leave your questions down in the comments below. Use the tools and the formula and find the right size for your planner, and be patient. Have patience with it. It does take some testing to figure out exactly what size you like. Again, if you're using an iPad 12.9 Pro, 1728 by 1080 points is what you will use in Keynotes if you want your planner to look like this. If you're using a different size, you're going to have to test it out and think about, if your iPad is smaller than that, then you're going to need to go down in number-wise. So just be thinking about testing that out and finding the right size. Also, find your color palette. That's going to be really important for how you design your planner, how you lay things out, what gets assigned, what color, and where that goes, and kind of the overall aesthetic of your planner. And then finally, think about your binding. Do you need a binding? And if so, are you going to create that for yourself, or are you going to go buy one? If you're going to go buy one, go ahead and purchase it. Just make sure that it's in a PNG format with no background, because you're going to need to overlay it onto other elements of your planner. So that's your homework. And I know we haven't actually gotten to building the planner yet, but we will next video. But these are really important steps. And if you don't take these steps on the front end, it takes a lot longer to build the planner because you have to stop and then go figure these things out. So get your homework done and get ready for building in the next video. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Give me a thumbs up if you did. Leave all your questions and comments and ideas and advice down in the comments below. Subscribe to Planning Annie so you don't miss the next video in this series. And as always, thanks for planning with me.